Mikey, I want you to just tell us about yourself and how you got here, how you discovered that this was such a fundamental wound for men, and how you got rolling with the book. We'll go from there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks
Yeah.
for this is my first time I'm doing a podcast. I've been watching a lot of podcasts in my life, and thanks a lot for inviting me and for giving me the voice to address a topic that is of gigantic proportions once you start to understand what it is, while it is hugely normalized at the same time.
Yep.
So yeah, I was born in Belgium, small European country. I studied social work. I have a social work background. I did work as a juvenile in a juvenile detention center for a couple of years before moving to Spain and teaching English, then jumping on the freelance train of offering companies and businesses translations and writing in several languages, English, Dutch, Spanish, became fluent in Spanish. But moreover, I've always been fascinated by our world in general, learning and trying to see things that people don't really see. And in that sense, I have developed a broader understanding of the world as we know it through developing other senses that are more developed. If others have been trimmed, let's put it that way, or tuned down, your body, your senses start to develop in a different way. And especially when living through the pandemic, for example, and trying to wrap your head around something like that, or things that are just happening on a daily basis, the constant distraction that humanity lives in. Combined with the interest in the audiovisual and photography, and then later on spirituality and mysticism, metaphysics, and then indeed to the point where the pieces of the puzzle fit.
Yes.
The constant lack that you carry, and the scarcity, in fact, where it comes from. Either it could be constructed, engineered, or it's conditioned through parents or the network or schools or society, but also through bodily interventions, biopolitical weapons, which is what it is, which is male genital mutilation is a biopolitical weapon, a social engineering of the highest level worldwide, either beyond religion, under the veil of religion or culture or cult rituals, which is what it is as well. It's a huge cult ritual.
A blood sacrifice, really.
A blood sacrifice. And then it's also called a covenant with God. So from strict Catholic backgrounds or Jewish backgrounds or Muslim backgrounds, always within the same concept of controlled religion that finds it necessary to obstruct the path to self-realization through circumcision. And it can take a whole life. For most people, it takes an entire lifetime to never know it, basically, or it takes you 30 years. I mean, it took me 33 years to unmantle that weapon. Basically, it's like you unmantle it. You could say it's a dismantling of a huge scheme that affects life on all levels, keeps you permanently stuck in a state of suffering, searching, lack, scarcity, never fulfilled. It causes insatiability on all levels. You're never satisfied. And this is what they created, obviously. So it takes a lot of meditation to find presence, but still not enough to undo the damage that's done, because the neurological network that they've damaged, deliberately damaged, and still do so to this day, probably in hospitals as we speak. Normalized, coerced. Parents are coerced to do it as a normal thing. There's a lot of books written about it. My book is a bit different in that sense. It's more of a layered with cultural and film analysis. My passions, language as well, because language language dictates everything. And so that's in short a little bit uh, what I've been doing.
Good. Thank you. Thank you. Um, what I know this might sound silly, but what is male genital mutilation? Like you described the neurological, cut that it is. If you were just to describe what it is and what it does, right? How would you
Yeah.
frame that?
Well, it ticks all the boxes of all the conventions against torture, for example. Bodily integrity, the safety and the well-being for the child, the so-called UN charters, all the conventions, you could look it up.
Mm,
They're all violated and then still justified in hospitals or through schools or through medical necessities or fake diagnosis. So that's mutilation, and then that's kept alive through by political parties, by the system, by religion, controlled religion,
mm,
to oppress the development of the energy of the soul of this person,
mm,
to never transcend, basically.
mm, mm,
Um, Mutilation it is because it's incredibly painful as well.
mm.
You're undergoing an enforced torture. That's literally what it is. It's torture.
By your
If
family,
people
by your,
by
yeah, the ones
unfortunately
closest to you. Yeah.
by the family, which is even more you know causing a lot of resentment. Actually, that's there's lots of statistics about it as well. If people want to know more, I would say quick search for Ronald Goldman's work, and then Tim Hammond as well, Georgienne Chapin. I don't know her last name pronunciation, but they're Americans dedicating their work to education on the topic on a huge level.
Mm,
Tim Hammond, the organization is called GALDEF, Genital Autonomy Legal Defense Fund.
mhm.
And then there's a lawyer, Eric Klopper, based in Oregon. And in January, he, together with Tim Hammond, they sued the state of Oregon
Good.
to justify, or to, at least to request to have male genital mutilation seen equally harmful as female genital mutilation, which is what it is. It is the same thing. So that's where it becomes a heated topic, unfortunately.
Mm,
Then it becomes something that has to be competed or sort of has to be some kind of competition in terms of which mutilation is worse. So in that sense,
about both. Yeah.
yeah, of course, all of that stuff is horribly wrong. So it should just be banned forever. But the fact is, it's not banned, and I hope it will be banned. But it's one of the largest schemes that's ever been imposed upon humanity, aside of all
Mm,
the wars that are going on, all the
mm.
conflicts, all the yeah,
How long has it been going on, Niels? Like the Abrahamic religions you mentioned, but is it pre-Abrahamic? Really? Like how long? And how? Or
thousands of years
thousands of years.
through the Egyptians. Egyptians did it. Then later, Victorian Empire, the Victorian Crusade. There's a
Mhm.
They traded in foreskins as well, the royalty.
Mm,
Because what it is, it's like having your house invaded, your vessel, your physical vessel, your energetic vessel, the body,
yeah.
by an outsider. They rob all your energy, and then you go through life with the wind flowing through the whole house from the back door through the front door, never to be able to shut that door.
Right.
Um, well, yeah, it goes very far. It goes very far.
Mhm.
I don't want to overwhelm people with the
Yeah.
concept, but it's very, very, very multifaceted.
Yes. Yes. I
Poss-
mean, yes, it's cosmic. Yes, it's because it's your energetic grid and your protective sheath and your every part of the body is essential. Um, and this is our most potent area of the body. This is our life force, male life force. Um, and if they were trading in foreskin, it's the energy that's held there. It's the cosmic energy. Um, and that's, I mean, it's par for the course of what has gone on here, where we've been systematically stolen from and extracted from in every possible way, and enslaved. So, but this is, I didn't know it was that old, and that it's a really foundational, a foundational torturous act, that we have not healed from, that in any way, I've not known of anybody else speaking of this. So, like, out in public, and it's behind closed doors, and I know a lot of women who struggled with circumcising their sons, for instance. Some chose to, some chose not to. But this, to bring this out in the open, it's like, is the public, are the people doing this for the first time ever? It seems like it's always been this assumptive thing, and part of this ritual. It's a ritual that nobody has even, like, questioned.
Exactly. It's interesting to see that a lot of people are not just waking up, you could say, but just to also connect that actual thing with the rest of what it
All of
means
it.
to wake up from the illusion. Actually, there's no way to not look at it, to not acknowledge it, to not address that, because that's where it starts.
Yeah.
So throughout the last 2 years, when people started to talk about, you know, manifestation and all of those things, and all these spiritual teachers, and the whole thing that people have been exposed to, through a lot of books and YouTubers and whatnot, you have so many people talking about manifestation. But only recently, even for me, it started to make more sense that if the whole idea behind manifestation is to basically just recognizing your own power as a human being, the energy you carry, to then, through that energetic manifestation of your body, of your spirit, of your inner voice, inner dialogue, you cannot really do that if you're circumcised, because there is always an energy leak.
Mm,
You would have to constantly walk around with neurolinguistic programming, or certain binaural beats, or just not listen to anyone outside of you, to not get distracted, because anything else that comes in can disrupt your your flow.
mm,
So imagine that in a large scale, if people try to manifest or try to get to the desired state of that wish fulfilled that they talk about, such as
mhm,
so many people have talked about,
yeah,
particularly Neville Goddard, for example, or others. You cannot reach that state if you're circumcised. You can, but it takes a lot more work, a lot more work,
mhm,
and um, because there's together with that scarcity imprint at the same time, that constantly conflicts with that
mhm,
desire to achieve certain things, or to get to a certain state, then it becomes very difficult um, to get there, and it's a daily thing that you're uh, confronted with.
mhm, mhm,
Um,
mhm. Like filling the leak and fortifying it. And it makes me
mhm.
think of just the habit of masculine stealing women's energy, right? From that, if you have a cup that can't be full, there's a hole in the bottom.
Yeah,
You're desperate. It's a desperate thing, and men have spoken of this desperate
yeah.
quality of wanting women's energy, because we don't have the leak. In
Mhm,
part, I mean, many other reasons, but I can see,
mhm.
and I can feel that. I can feel what that must, I mean, at least a glimpse of what that must be,
Yeah.
where you're constantly looking for rest and a nourishment that you're not connected with. Yeah.
You're constantly exposed to PTSD on a non-stop basis. It's learned helplessness. It
Mm,
is fight, flight, freeze 24/7.
mm,
So people, when it becomes normalized, people live in a fight, flight, freeze state their entire existence. And to numb that fight, flight, freeze state, they would resort to drugs, or alcohol, or anything that numbs that down. Never living, never present,
mhm,
never going ahead with life, never moving forward. Um, Yes.
Mhm.
So that's
Mhm. Mhm.
and then also, as you said, it's like the expression you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
that's literally the case, because as I describe it in the book, it's like having your life quality reduced from full high definition color, perfect spectrum of everything that makes life beautiful, that makes life enjoyable, from early morning sunrise or the smell of grass or coffee or something, or to a walk on the beach. You can have all these things and still not feel satisfied. And like this is the case in my reality. I
Mhm.
have an amazing life. I can say that. But
Mhm.
there is no gratitude for it almost unless I really try to practice that gratitude to
Mhm.
actually have it, because I depended on a lot of willpower to get this life,
Mhm.
and then to able to maintain that life, it requires for me to be almost trying to be in a constant state of gratitude, which is also not really realistic, because I also want to just enjoy it, and it's like you can never enjoy it, and that's of
Mhm.
course what totalitarians want. They don't want you to enjoy life.
Mhm.
They want to squeeze all life out of you, beginning at birth or childhood, as in my case, was at the age of 7. And
Yes.
so it's a horrible, vile system designed by absolute totalitarian barbarians back in the day, thousands of years ago, until today, where you can see it manifesting in the bureaucracy of evil. As Hannah Arendt described it, the banality of evil.
Banality of it.
Just a quick procedure, ma'am, no problem.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
for your son's best will.
Mhm.
I think it's time for people, if you're listening, if you're a mother or father, to say no and to talk to all the people to just stop this. It's
Yes.
enraging. It's absolutely deeply deeply disturbing that people have become so numbed down to what systems impose,
Yes.
the youngest ones, and their parents coerced,
Yeah.
creating a whole disruption in the family, in the nuclear family, to the entire world. And you see
Mhm.
it in the United States, for example. 80% of men, if I'm not
Mhm.
wrong, is circumcised.
Mm.
80%, and it is a system that thrives on, um, well, global exploitation. Unfortunately, I like the United States a lot. I've been there a lot, but unfortunately, uh, the politics behind it is focused on control and on expansion and on lowering life
Distraction.
quality
Yeah.
and distraction and extraction.
Extraction.
Yes.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And so the military industrial complex also profits hugely on this
Mhm.
quick modification, to send troops into battle to become
Mhm.
desensitized, and then
Mhm.
to get out of that even more desensitized and then left on their own. So
Mhm.
when we see this happening in large scale conflicts,
Mhm.
as we speak, it's unfolding at incredible things that are happening again nowadays.
Yeah.
If you see that militarized states, exactly those, enforce such a thing on their male population and then send them into battle, conflict, for
Mhm.
whatever reason, whether it is religious or
Mhm.
globalist reasons, or expansion, or conquest.
Mhm.
You put people into battle desensitized already,
Mhm.
so they're prepared to actually serve that nation, and it's almost
Mhm.
done to make people at some stage in their life serve as a little pawn for huge, massive scale conflicts that are never ending, and
Yes.
then it starts to become even more clear what it really is.
Mhm.
Whether it is in conflict or to serve within a capitalist exploitative system, it's the same
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, makes you
Yes.
desensitized to all of the suffering, to all of the of the glory of life as well. It makes you,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes, it's the whole point is to desensitize, to make men into pawns for empire, for to make good colonizers. It's literally to create a colony, to create drones, uh, dehumanize, desensitized men. You know, it's like everybody loses in colonization, everybody. But in a way, these you men from these lineages have were the first to lose, right? And then your loss, your leak, your desensitization and dehumanization goes downhill, and you consequently dehumanize in everybody you come in contact with. Um, and that's what's occurred, right? The colonizer lines have
Yeah.
dehumanized everyone.
Yeah.
And so now we are all leaking. The grid has been ruptured. Now, I do healing work, and I'm helping hold the frequency of the new grid, and I'm interested in healing, and I know that we all can heal, that there isn't a permanent damage done, although this will be about as close as you could get. And so I don't wanna downplay that. But I wanna hear how you called it a thin red line,
Uh-huh.
and you've talked about neurolinguistic programming and these other ways that you reconnect and feel connected to your own body, your own self, your own divinity, your own energy field. Um, so if you could describe I love all your language is really helpful, and I can go there with you where it feels like
Uh-huh.
black and white and desensitized. And so if you could describe like what you when you were saying you wake up in the morning and it feels like this, if you describe that, and what it is to like wake up as a man who's been mutilated, right? A man who's been tortured and has not been acknowledged for that, right? And is exposed every day. And then how you build the bridge to feeling more connected in your day. I
Mhm.
know it's going to be different for every man, but you've really walked the path and written about it.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. Yeah. So every day well, this is the case for me. Obviously, I don't speak for all men, but to get to that desired state, to actually enjoy life and to be able to be grateful, and to, as you mentioned, well, how I see it, well, people call it vocation or dharma or whatever you're supposed to be doing,
yeah.
or movie made by Terrence Malick, one of my favorite films, Thin Red Line.
Mm,
Um, we're all we all have a thin red line, and what male genital mutilation does, circumcision does, is it cuts people off from their thin red line,
mhm,
the line that you're supposed to want to follow, and then everything will work in your favor. When people ask children, "What do you want to do in life? What do you feel like doing? What's your dream?" If a child, can feel that, because children are master manifestors. Children who are uncircumcised probably more than those who are circumcised. So it becomes far more difficult for people than growing up as an adult to not wake up in the conditioned state. And um, it is like waking up with a vacuum cleaner faced towards a bird in a cage. Could sort of look at it that way.
mhm,
So
mhm,
you wake up like just just disoriented. It's really disorientation, massive disorientation, especially once you've gone through the healing path, the spiritual path, the understanding of what conditioning means. I apologize for the background noise. Um,
we can hear you okay.
yeah. What I do is try to get out as quick as possible, get out of my bed or wherever I'm sleeping, whether it is a
Mhm,
hammock or a tent or whatever.
mhm,
It doesn't matter. Just get up. This is a very key thing. Get up. Don't linger too long at the bed, because just start the day, seize the day, get out, get sunshine, stare into the sun.
mhm,
Um, Ideally living around coast or mountain environments, as
mhm,
much nature as possible, not in city grids at all,
mhm,
because
mhm,
it's even worse. Than you can't almost not get out. It requires deep knowing and willpower to get out of a system, because but the city systems, they absorb you quickly. It's very
mhm,
fast, that thing.
mhm,
And then breath work. So I do swear by breath work. I started doing that throughout the pandemic, actually,
mhm,
to understand what was going on. And for me, it was already very clear that what was going on was a huge manipulation scheme worldwide. And in order not to step into the trap of that I just through YouTube, through various methods,
Mhm.
trying to feel the power of what it actually does. And once you start to feel that the blood starts to circulate better all over your body,
Mhm.
there becomes really some rewiring that I cannot explain. That's why I do it almost every day as much as I can when I'm overwhelmed or when there is a blockage, because we're living with a constant energy blockage. So you're walking with a constant energy blockage. Every time there is stress or entropy coming from things that you're supposed to be doing, but you're not doing it, is because of this blockage. So what I do is I sit
Mhm.
down somewhere quiet, try to sit down because it's like you can't really sit down very quietly. It
Mm.
requires a lot of self-disciplining.
Mm.
And then breath work, what it does activate that DMT molecule, the pineal gland starts to feel more alive, and you feel like you're opening a cage, you're
Mhm.
dismantling a thing. And I was never really aware when I did that before actually working on this topic, what this was, this feeling.
Mhm.
And then I started to understand that it is deep, like getting loose from this grid that you've been imposed in, from that invisible cage, which is circumcision. What This is what male genital mutilation does. It puts the individual in an invisible cage on
Mhm.
top of exterior conditioning as well.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
then you see life
Energetically.
through a
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
narrow world, sort of, and then you think you're open-minded, but actually you're not that open-minded
Mhm.
until you really start to open your mind through things like breathwork or plant medicine or other
Mhm.
uh, nutrients in food like fungi, ashwagandha, things
Mhm.
like that, lion's mane. Live as healthy as possible, and then actually also, of course, cannabis. Here we go.
Mhm.
Cannabis,
Mhm.
largely criminalized in the country where I'm from,
Yeah.
for the exact same reason, because it is the actual plant that helps the
Rewires.
yeah the wounds that have been imposed by the same state that tolerates and endorses and acknowledges state-funded torture to children's genitals. So if
Mhm.
also it's illegal to smoke a little bit of cannabis, not even talking as a recreational way, but
Mhm.
if they also even prohibit the way to healing, then what are we talking about? This is not a democracy. This is not a democracy at all. It
Never
is,
have been.
and people think they're living in a democracy, but Jesus Christ, they're not living in a democracy. It's a disguised totalitarian regime.
Absolutely.
I'm
Absolutely.
sorry that
Absolutely.
I have to say this, and
Oh yeah. Oh,
I
I've said it a million times.
honestly, yeah, but I've told this to many other people, even within Belgium and out there beyond Belgium as well. They don't want to see it, and this is what happens. You don't see it because you're conditioned to just normalize this kind of life, and
And
then
it's
yeah, it
everything, right?
becomes
We see how war is connected with the state, is connected with the medical industry, is connected with
mhm,
foreskin sales, is connected with child
yeah,
trafficking, is like it's all part of the vampiric system.
yeah,
And so it's a lot to wake up from, but
it is.
I I can imagine your book. What's your book's title, by the way?
The Last Hour of a Cult.
Great name. Very
Yeah.
compelling. Um, that this would be I think of them as portals, it's like people come for healing and for therapy after a suffering, right? After a crisis, after whatever. Um, and then through there they start to see the conditioning that's in their system and that their parents aren't who they thought they were and their teachers aren't thought, and their medical doctors or whatever. And we just we find our way. But there isn't a there isn't a woman I know who has a son who and I'm sure the men too, but the men themselves were cut off, right? So it's the women who can feel the impact, like their baby son is being tortured and they know it.
Mhm,
And that this would be a portal, that this book would be a portal. It would be
mhm,
a way. It would be like the love of a mother who's willing to hear the truth and to know the truth, um, that this could be her entryway to
mhm.
realizing what's really going on. Um,
Yeah.
because this is so primal, and it's so, and it's very, to me, it's very aligned, it's very in line with what's coming out right now, which is the realization that vaccines are bioweapons, and that we are poisoning our children in these early years, and we're torturing our children, and parents viscerally know it, and now they're intellectually knowing it. So your book seems well timed, and that we're ripe for this. We're ripe for the reality of this, and
Yeah,
and that, like, protecting children, little infants, is like something we all want to do.
yeah, that's exactly right. This is what I'm hoping as well. I mean, um, the book really serves a lot of people. It's not just for people who have children. It's really for everyone because it talks a lot about
Absolutely.
the global scheme of things, but then not from a biased angle, completely independent, completely sovereign, completely true to what it really is. There is no hidden agenda behind this book. Of course, I also want you know, to come back to the scarcity imprint. Um, it becomes interesting that this book that I've done this, I've written it. I never thought I would do something like this, but there comes a point where you can't look away from it anymore because it affects you on a daily basis, and then that becomes your vocation. That became my thin red line in that sense. So
Mm,
at the same time, when you can serve humanity in that sense, and then this is very clear that this is what I'm supposed to be doing
mm.
with
Yeah.
through the worst thing ever, actually, through the worst thing ever. That's what you're supposed to be doing. It's the obstacle becomes the way, as they say, and that's true. And so I do hope indeed that people will see the truth in what I've written and all the other people written on this topic, but never the way I've written this thing, because no one talks about the spiritual dimension
Yeah.
of this type of mutilation, and the metaphysical dimension, and then the quantum dynamics and the whole and the religious background, cultural
Mhm.
background, and how that really creates your reality, how it shapes your reality, and how you can actually claim that back,
Yes.
that power, and don't give it out of hands. Don't outsource your energy,
No.
and definitely, please, parents, do not let anyone outsource your child's body, you know, to some state or to some medical program or to some cultural belief or some religious belief. With all respect for religion, and people of faith within all religions, this is not the point. The point is not to become um, anti-religion or become against people who believe in whatever they believe, whether they're a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. This is a human affair. This is really a human
Yeah.
affair. This is an individual affair. Religion has to stay away from that. But I am not here to stir in religious pots or
Mhm.
to. I'm not here to discuss.
No. But
Um,
religion is the worst cloak. It's
yeah,
to call something so harmful and torturous sacred is the biggest spiritual violation there is. And so I don't respect religion for the most part. I respect pieces of wisdom inside these things we call religion, which are few and far between. Few and
right.
far
Yes,
between. But,
sure.
but I don't respect the cultural traditions that do harm. Like, you can and then to label that as God's will is that there's nothing more harmful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I agree with you, with the fact that religion is just is what hides the divinity within everything and everyone. Of course, in that
There
sense,
you
I'm
go,
100%
yes. Yeah.
agreeing with you. No, no, but that's where it becomes so difficult because I grew up within nowadays it's a totally nihilist, rationalist,
Mm,
hollowed out place. But before that, it was Catholicism and Christianity and the Spanish conquest and then the Dutch conquest and then two world wars. So people have been suffering a lot also in these regions. They've been completely desensitized to their own oppression that they're dealing with. but then disguised as a sort of functioning democracy, which it is not.
Mhm.
And so people living like that there.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, I never liked religion. I always had this lingering hatred almost towards it. And now I start. I mean, of course, it became very clear to me where that came from.
Mhm.
Because the covenant with God. I mean, if it's called a covenant with God, it becomes really hard even for me now, right now, right here, to pinpoint um, why it's called a covenant with God. Because now, for me, it makes sense what it is.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's unforgivable, absolutely unforgivable, and um, it is, yeah, it is
Yeah.
global colonization. You can't go around that anymore. It's time for people to really start seeing that. And this is what I hope, that through my work, people will see
Mhm.
that all the lies we've been fed and all the fake stories they've told us or have enforced upon us
Yep.
through cultural rituals, cultural
Mhm.
rituals.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's not an easy thing to work on, let
Mhm.
alone write it,
Mhm.
because it's very hard to put it into humanly understandable words.
Mhm.
A concept of this level is not just it's not just a cut, it's not just a bodily modification. The, the whole thing behind it, the scheme behind it is really hard to explain. No one really explains it that way. Everyone explains it in a medical way or sort of like a religious way or a cultural
Yeah,
normality,
just
but
it's a standard
no
practice.
one
Yeah.
talks about exactly about what it really is.
Yeah.
And so what I've done is have really written it in an understandable, digestible way for everyone, not just for academics, not
Mhm.
just for professors, not for everyone really. And
Mm,
I believe people will benefit from this. So yeah,
great.
looking for publishers and things like that, I'm sure it will work out. Trust that it will work out.
Absolutely.
But it seems like there's a lot of
It's the
resistance
sacred
in it.
work.
Yeah,
It's the covenant, what you're doing.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Will you share what you've discovered is the significance of the foreskin, like spiritually and energetically?
Yeah. Well, if we are a vessel, if we are an energetic vessel,
Mhm.
um, the foreskin covers your divine body part, which is the
Mhm.
creator, basically.
Mhm.
So when there is no cover, let's put it that way, when there is no cover, when you just walk through life with the door open, with the front door open, what it does is you're a constant um, walking distraction,
Mhm.
constantly distracted from everything that puts you present here and now, whether it is in your work, in your relationship, in your hobbies, in your sports, in whatever you're actually doing. It makes you constantly aware and unaware, sorry, and not at ease.
Mhm.
So it is in that sense like not
Restless.
ease. It's dis-ease is
Distance.
the not feeling at ease.
Mhm.
Um, and then spiritually and energetically and metaphysically, to reach that certain state, you have to connect to your body. It shouldn't be shame, shouldn't be a taboo. All
Mhm.
the cultures did it throughout all of society. I mean, all of what is now society, all of the way they used to live together. They would, connect to themselves, connect to their power, and then work with that energy to create their reality and to come up with inventions and things that are,
Mhm.
ingenious. So, what circumcision is when it's imposed upon a person, it restricts that genius. It's like it, it opens the bottle of the genie and the genie flies away. It's
Flies out.
really, really hard to get the genie back, to call the genie back. That's what I'm going through every day, especially because I'm interested in all those topics
Mhm.
and esotericism and metaphysics and the whole spiritual thing.
Mhm.
Well, I'm living in the reality where the genie is still flying around in many places, he's all over the place.
Mm.
To claim that back,
Mhm.
it's an exhaustion as well. It's exhaustion of your energy.
Mhm.
You're functioning at a lower battery in black and white. because of the neurological damage. Thousands of nerves have been cut
Mm.
off, all
Yes.
related, all connected to the brain, all to the neurological system.
Mhm.
And in that sense, we go through life completely different.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes, yes. We know the whole body is a brain basically, and this is this creative center. And I see, I get what you mean. The doors are open, the cover is gone. There's no cover. There's no like harbor, like a sense of harbor, a sense of safety, a sense of home, even.
Mhm.
Yeah.
This is where that's why it's such a taboo because no one talks about it. And
Mm.
for me, it's also not easy to talk about it. But at the same time, if we're celebrating our bodies and we should be doing that, and
Mhm.
how we are and who we are, and if other people can do it, why can men not do that? Honestly,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
honestly, why it's such a taboo? Why is it such a taboo? I mean,
Yep.
all males in the world have a penis.
Mhm.
You know, all women in the world have a vagina.
Mhm. Which, by the way, the word vagina is it translates, or the root of it is sheath for a weapon. So I don't use the word vagina, because fuck that name. Fuck that name. I like the
I
word
did not know
cunt.
that.
The word cunt comes from kindred, and kindness. It's the same root. So I like to use the word cunt or pussy, but not vagina.
Get out of here! Get out of here, you fucking cunt!
You cunt. You cunt. It's the highest compliment. And I as I
Are
always
you
say that.
joking?
No, I'm not joking at all. I'm not joking at
It's
all.
such an offensive word to most people.
I know, but
Whereas
it's
in
being
Australia, they
reclaimed.
say it every
It's
day.
being reclaimed
Oh, really?
in the drag queen circles, and in many young women, where like the highest compliment in the world is like, "Ooh, she's serving cunt. She is so cunty," because it's like you're as womanly, but also like a bad bitch, like also tough. So, we're reclaiming it, and I refuse to use the word vagina because sheath for a
Oh,
weapon.
wow.
But I think the word vagina was I'm guessing there's a tie there with your sheath being taken away,
Hmm.
and then we become this sheath, right? Like, it's like, that our body, right, is seen as the object for a weapons sheath, i.e. a penis.
Wow.
That's how women have been treated, right? So,
Yeah.
and that's the medical term tells you a lot, right?
Look at that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I hadn't thought about it that way.
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Well, yeah.
So
Let's then call it our creative center. Let's just put it that
creative
way.
center, love it.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. I love
world
it
of
that
art,
way.
creative center. Yes,
Yeah, exactly.
yes,
That
yes.
it's true.
Yep.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, if we just say, you connect to your creative center, your vortex of creation,
Yes.
and if that's been connected to guilt, to the lowest
Mhm.
frequency, shame, and this is the whole point of why it's taboo.
Yep.
It keeps people in that low frequency. You're never able to
Yes.
see
Yes. It's all so
past
tied
that.
together. Yeah.
It is. And this is the most difficult part to address because it is a very, shameful topic. Whereas it shouldn't be because us humans, this is what we've been doing. Uh, and we're 20, 25, and there's still so much shame and
Yep.
yeah, especially around the body and about our sex and our gender and
Mhm.
um, things we're learning as we grow and as we walk forward in
Mhm.
life. But there are things you cannot look away from, and it is especially the case when once you're aware of what these things imply, what these
Mhm.
mutilations imply, and then living with it on a daily basis, knowing that what you know obstructs every single day. It obstructs what you want to do, and that's where I find it very important
Mhm. Mhm.
to
Mhm.
shed light on that in particular,
Mhm. Mhm.
um, in order for people not just to create, but also to be more aware of manipulation, to be
Mhm.
more aware of schemes that are being engineered all the time,
Mhm.
nonstop, to distract us, to make us obey to some authority. And in that sense, of course, the discipline and punish aspect of circumcision
Mhm.
rings through life as you grow older. I mean, even when you're in your 30s, I'm 36, 37 almost. So it's still there, subconsciously. And then if especially it's kept in alive through parents who never talk about it.
Yeah.
Facing the You have to face it yourself. You can't really talk about it with your own family who
Right.
actually impose it upon you, you know? That's the worst for
Yes.
me.
That is the
That's
worst.
hard nut
Betrayal of it.
to crack, especially that, yeah, because of betrayal and then also the yeah, limits that you live with.
Yep.
No,
Yep. 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 And parents just refusing to take accountability, take responsibility for what they've done because it
they
is, I
don't.
mean, it's like to realize you've tortured your own child. You've poisoned your own child. You've, harmed their spiritual cord, um, is enormous. But I want to get back to healing, to reclaiming our creative center, you know, because so you were talking about, beautiful all these breathing techniques, all of them, and I teach embodiment, which is just bringing awareness into the body, so simple. And there's Randolph on here calls it cuddling, calls it where pure awareness, our immortal self, has all the qualities that we need from our parents, from we expected from other people, but it isn't housed in other people. It's us. And so if he's healing a heart wound, he calls it cuddling.
Mm,
And it strikes me that even I, like, when I do embodiment work, right, and all the meditations I've taught, hundreds of hours of stuff, that when it comes to the genitals, because of the taboo, I won't go into them too much, versus they actually for both sexes, they need more attention. And I'm very curious about guiding a meditation or having you men experiment with, like, energetically and with awareness, recreating that sheath, recreating the
mm,
foreskin to wrap your own awareness around your own creative center, to feel that support and that holding and that protection from your own self. Because if we can do it with our heart wound, we can do it with the wound of our genitals.
yeah,
And we know that in physics, right? Matter follows energy, which follows awareness. So we put awareness on something, the energetic grid shifts, and there's form shifts as well, right? So like the blood flow is better, etc. So I'm just really curious about that, about exploring it. I don't like the word meditation because it's not. It's just feeling yourself, being present, showing up, fully embodying and feeling, because our energy body is so much bigger than our physical body, right? So the energy body of your creative center can be rebuilt and can be robust again. Um, I it I don't I'm very curious um about what the level of repair that might be available
hmm
energetically and with awareness and with this kind of meditation, with embodiment.
mm,
I feel like it's uncharted territory. Like, I haven't really explored that, and I haven't had it in mind to help men, and I don't know that that's my job. I think it might be other men who have been circumcised who explore what it is to reclaim your creative
yeah.
center energetically. Yeah.
It's interesting what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. Well, it is not repairable.
Yeah.
You can people do reconstruction of the foreskin, for example. These are actual things that people do. There are devices you could buy to extend the skin back. To walk around like that. Well, that's because of the fucking state did that. So there
Yeah.
shouldn't be a taboo. First of all, if people feel the need to be able to do that. That's one thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or people choose a surgical operation where they find some other skin and then they add the skin to that missing that body part which has that skin missing to sort of reconstruct that. But the nerves are still cut.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is the problem. So the nerves up to the brain are cut off. it's an amputation though
It's an
of it's a
amputation.
nerval amputation. That's is where it becomes a little bit more tricky and more difficult
Mhm.
to heal it or to restore it or to claim that back.
Yep.
In that sense, the most important thing is to, on a daily basis, connect with yourself and feel as much as you can for a
Mhm.
while, and then go about your day, and then things sort of fall into place
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
through awareness. And as you mentioned, deep meditations could be very beneficial. But a lot of people struggle, in particularly with meditation, because it's so hard to focus. And this is also where it conflicts with the mutilation of circumcision, because
Mhm.
you're constantly restless. So
Mhm.
it requires one to sit in quiet and really ground for a while before even understanding this topic, and
Mhm.
then to start healing on an
Mhm.
individual basis. I think it's first of all individual,
Yep.
because of the sensitivity, the topic, and the know, personal trauma that it is. I don't think it's very ideal to do this, do some meditations in groups or something like that. I think that could be a thing maybe at some point, but individually, to gain your strength, to gain your worthiness, your sense of self, and
Mhm.
then later, when you recover a bit of your wholeness, let's
Mhm.
put it that way,
Mhm.
then yeah, you go through life much more confidently.
Mhm. Mhm.
mm yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
Food supplements as well are really good for blood flow, like Peruvian maca root, for example.
Mhm.
Highly recommend that.
Good. Good.
Maca is really good. Um,
Good.
Other
You said
plant,
ashwagandha, maca. I'll just put it on our description. Um,
yes,
ash
ashwagandha, maca,
good.
lion's mane,
Mm.
cannabis in conscious doses for sure.
Mhm.
But all combined and all in the right setting with the right intention. It's not something to take lightly. These things have effects, and then you start to understand more. Once you have no access to these things, it's much harder to even grasp
Mhm.
this setting. Also, you could say it's like a setting to
Mhm.
understand the setting that you're living in. But there's a lot of
Yes.
different settings you can access. But if you don't know how to change that setting, it's really hard to. It's like that's why I call it a cage. It's a permanent cage.
Mhm. 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 Yep. I see. And I'm just um I'm being struck by just have a lot of compassion for men just coming. Um and compassion for how awful it must be to treat yourself and women and children, like to have been dehumanized and then to almost with how do I want to say it, like compulsively dehumanizing everyone else
Hmm.
because everything's been made black and white, you know.
Yeah.
And I had the good fortune of being with a male friend recently who described, like, we were in a challenging physical experience where there was a lot of storms and things like that, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is like ridiculous!" Like we were literally in like a rock storm on a beach, and but he was like, he didn't mind it at all because what it did is demand that he get back into the body. And so in a way for him it was enlivening, whereas I'm so sensitive where I was like, "Ow, this just hurts." Like I can't deal with like I needed to leave the situation, right? I needed shelter. But for him it was actually enlivening. And I get that the setting is really different. That the setting is it's not I'm not, it's the level of sensitivity just isn't there. And um and then the life that you perpetuate is desensitized, and you're desensitized to other people. And then as women, because we didn't have a choice, we couldn't survive without being attached to men, right? We've had to desensitize ourselves to match this desensitized frequency and numb
Hmm.
ourselves and deny ourselves and disembody, right, from our intuition, from everything, to
Yeah.
just kinda to just be with y'all, do you know?
Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
this is not this is a human violation for all humans that set the frequency at
Yeah.
this lower level.
It sets the
Yeah.
tone. Yeah,
It sets
indeed.
the tone. Mhm.
And the tone is not the ideally ideal tone, of course not. Yeah.
No, no.
Um, I was also going to mention, so when neurodiversity, for example, it's very related to the same topic as well, because
Mhm.
you are more distracted in general. It's really hard to focus. I mean, I always had issues at school, when I was younger. But then it was very clear for me where it all came from, and it is because of that.
Mhm, mhm,
You're
mhm,
constantly dispersed,
mhm. Dispersed.
and so dispersed. Yes, so
Yes.
can't sit still. You're always fidgety. It's all because of this lack that you don't even know when you're so young. So then they label you ADHD or ADD or whatever it is, or autism or something. There's always
Right,
something to be labeled with,
right, right.
whereas they
And
don't
mostly boys.
acknowledge where,
Yeah,
yeah, where it actually comes from. And there
yeah,
are a lot of studies also have proven that autism, well, what is called as the autism spectrum disorder is also, of course, the side effect of something like this.
yeah, yeah.
And so, yeah, if you then give your children pills or medication to
Mhm,
oppress that, then what are you then? Then what
mhm.
are you even numbing that child even down even more,
Yep,
and limiting all of his development, honestly, and
natural
joy and
development.
pleasure of life, basically.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
goes really far, and it's difficult to explain. I could jump from one thing to the next, but the distraction is very, very real. And we need
yeah,
all our soldiers on the front line
yeah, yeah,
to get something done.
yeah,
But if you
yeah,
can't have that, if it's physiologically impossible,
yeah,
then you're like a bird constantly looking around and not really feeling present. I'm trying to be, for example, right here, right now, to be very present, but it's not easy,
yeah,
especially not virtually. So
yeah,
to jump in what you're saying or to find the right train of thought, because
yeah,
it is difficult. It is more difficult for me.
yeah,
I am not like
yep,
functioning the same way as other people are.
yes,
Just how
yes,
it is.
yeah.
I don't want to think it that way because
It's just true, and it's just it's
it's
so
true.
important to talk about this, and that it's 80% of men in the US and,
Yeah.
worldwide. I'm curious about the numbers, but we have to I mean, awareness is where we always start, and empathy where you were doing a great job of describing it, by the way. All these different words are really helpful because they're words I would know for in other ways, right? And I can embody it. I can sense it with you. I can get a glimpse of what it might be like. I've bet, as when the other times that I've felt diffuse or felt unprotected or felt restless, and then I'm like multiplying that times 20, you know what I mean? And then every day and imagining what that is. And knowing all the men in my life who've been circumcised and fitting these patterns, and never ever feeling grounded, home,
Yeah.
held.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, and again, I'm such a, how do I say, I trust life, and I know there's a grand design here, and you're obviously in your dharma, and you're obviously and we're in a grand rising and a great awakening, and we may find solutions yet, that help. Um, and I totally agree with you that each person has their own journey here. But the more we talk about it and the more men talk about it with each other and don't feel like the only one because you get the diagnosis or I don't know, you're just shit on. You know what I mean? Like there's so many, and then you think it's you. You think, well, there's something particularly wrong. Like, I don't know anybody who doesn't have there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable, right? But men really, like, across the board. Um, and there of course isn't anything wrong with you. You're all perfect. However, there is some fundamental cutoff here. And to validate that for one another, and share healing tools, and just feel normalized and validated is huge.
It is. And that's why it's important that it is addressed, and that
Mhm.
the truth is shed and explained to people.
Yeah.
So the statistics, it's one third of all men worldwide, more than one third of all men. Western countries do it in Africa to colonize African men, to cut off their power. The
Yeah.
African man.
The colonizers.
It's
Yes.
really really insane. And um, the chi, so the life force chi or kundalini. There's a great book I've written that actually helped me a lot to understand. It's called Awakening Kundalini: The Path to Radical Freedom by Lawrence Edwards. He's a
Mm.
psychotherapist, and he helped me. He endorsed the work as well, so that's a huge thing because he understands what I'm trying to explain, and this is important because it feels people will listen more. It's not just me writing something. So when we talk about our Kundalini and the coil, which is what it is, our coil, uh, the coil is what needs to generate to a certain level of heat or energy to raise and then create, or to, yeah, to function, right? To let the light burn. But the coil, in terms of circumcision, is always sort of like floating.
Mm.
So you
Mm.
have 80% of
Mm.
American men just floating around,
Mhm.
or one
Sounds
third of
about right.
all men worldwide just floating around, doing what they're told, never listening to
Yes.
their inner voice, their intuition, their own creative powerhouse. And that is why it really is a huge um, thing to wrap your head around,
Mhm.
to get out of this maze of what is our world as we know it today, the
Yeah.
fog, the collective dream, as the Toltecs called it as well.
Mhm.
As long as you don't participate, you don't have to play the collective dream. You can just create
Mhm.
your own dream. But
Mhm.
it's not the same if you're circumcised. You have to get out
Mm.
of that lie
Right.
every single day, and the fake stories and the guilt there, and the dismissal and the ridicule and the marginalizing of such a huge issue. Whereas, come on, we're talking about really grave violations of human rights, and no
Grave
one talks
violations,
about
yeah. Yep.
very grave violations. I mean, cutting in the genitals of a child.
It's
Come on,
Nuremberg trial. It's the worst of the
it is.
worst. Yeah.
It really is, and it's normalized. That's why it's so difficult to have it addressed or understood to people, because
Mhm.
they think it's normal. But then I wonder often, there is no one really thinking about what they're doing to your child. If a doctor would come up to me and say something like, you're gonna circumcise your son, right?
Mhm.
I'd be, excuse me, what are you gonna do?
Mhm.
If you'd say something like that to someone in Mexico or someone in Zapatista territory,
Mhm.
where they have their own power, the government obeys.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's a really beautiful example, not just to glorify people wearing bandanas and stuff. They're not violent or conflictive. All the women are in charge and the men are allies.
Yep.
So
Yep.
let's say, a doctor of the state, or some people bring the message to some person to give a little, inflict a little modification for his benefit. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
but they can get away with this to populists, just like in the Western countries, where people just have just taken so much shit,
Mhm.
basically so much, all and over again,
Endless.
cutting off autonomy and your voice and your rights and
Mhm.
your dreams and your right to live a good life, a
Mhm.
life where you have everything, where you don't just have to survive, because circumcision is also a scarcity imprint. It
Mhm.
gives you the constant idea that you don't have enough. not just
Yes.
money, but everything. And that's why it's insatiability, a permanent insatiability. No
Mhm.
gratitude in scarcity. So the
Mhm.
book, there's a title, one of the chapters is called "No Gratitude in Scar City."
Scarcity. Yes. Yep. Scarcity. That's what it is. We've created a scarcity. Uh,
Uh-huh.
tortured and mutilated people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it requires deep mental training and reprogramming at the core level to break free from this.
Mhm.
Really,
Mhm.
really, really, really,
Mhm.
daily, 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 daily.
Mhm.
In my case, even today, just almost constantly, I was restless and
Mhm.
yeah, and
Yep.
that's where it becomes just sad that yeah, you can't really talk about it to many people. They just don't understand it or they just don't question
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
especially within your own family, there are no acknowledgements, nothing, zero.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas it affects you on a daily basis, living in what Deepak Chopra actually called um, enforced poverty.
Mhm. Mhm.
Whereas
Mhm.
I'm not poor at all. I mean, poor.
Mhm.
I've
Mhm.
learned these things now the last couple of years, what it means, wealth and
Mhm.
abundance and prosperity and all that. But you can read about it as much as you want. You're still
Mhm.
confronted with not feeling
Mhm.
enough, and then comparing to what people's salaries are.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
But I feel like I'm much more wealthy than that, but still don't feel like
Mhm.
it sometimes, and then that causes your frequency to shift back to lower.
Yes.
And so you're always like walking on this on a wire between two canyons.
Mhm.
Sometimes you
Mhm.
fall off. Sometimes you have one hand that still climb back up. Sometimes you fall off. You gotta climb all the way up again. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's big disorientation scheme, and people
Mhm.
uh, are not aware of it. So I'm just hoping people are a bit more aware of it. I hope
Yeah, we gotta
I
spread
hope people
awareness.
can. Yeah, because for me it's kind of clear, but I don't know if it's clear for others. I can't look in their minds and don't feel it. Literally, don't feel it even.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard for me to really know if people understand what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
For me, it makes a lot of sense, but for others, maybe it's very abstract something.
Well, let's I'm gonna open it up for questions if you don't mind and read any comments. I really appreciate just all your language and I look forward to the book. The floating thing is really helping me. And all of this too is like because I'm so focused on healing, I'm every single thing you are saying, I'm like, okay, how can we help repair that energetic coil, right? Like I can see so if there's grounding exercises through the tailbone and through the creative center and just ways to open that um just open the area and really have it feel embodied again, have it feel like home again. um Again, I'm not sure how much of this is my role, but i'm um I'm going with you on this, and I can feel how do I want to say too? I want to say something about like, because so a lot of what I talk about is like it's just one mind and one body, right? So you cut off your mutilated, your
Hmm.
foreskin is taken. That actually affects my body because it's one body.
Mm,
And when you heal, when there's more connection inside, um, you feel more grounded or whatever it is, right? Your kundalini is repaired as much as it can be.
mhm.
That helps other men and that helps, right? Because it's all interweaved together.
Yeah.
And so I'm like I'm really like, what's the project? Because I'm also working with Lorenzo about like we're resetting the grid and like what's possible. And I've seen miracles in healing, And anyway, uh, we'll keep talking, and I'm gonna keep this in the hopper for like, how do we heal this? Because it is an individual thing, and there's so much to contend with, as I know healing is, right? Each of us have our own, but we also share everything, right? We share the same beliefs, and then we share this wound. And everybody is affected by everybody's wounding but everybody
literally.
then can also contribute to men's healing. And I'm like, gosh, is there something men can do together? Is there something women can do together? Is there some way that we can repair this grid? This rupture and this leak that we have? This is going through my mind as you're speaking. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah,
Sorry, interesting what you're saying. Yeah, uh, I feel the same thing.
yeah,
In order for people to reunite again,
yeah,
yeah, of course, you have to address it, and it starts with the person himself
yeah.
first, with yourself, and then
Mhm.
contribute where you can. And but education around it and awareness is very important for people not to look away from such a topic without,
Yes,
falling into a sort of competition of judgment or ridicule or shame or whatever, but really understand where such a layered mechanism comes from and how it affects a child, later a man, working and living and walking in the world, trying to live his best life, to understand as well that this thing has to be healed. You have to sort of take care of it.
yes.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's like an open wound that you have to take care of every day and
Hmm.
do our best
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
patch up. Randolph
Yeah.
says, "So nice to have you here, Niels, to talk about this." I'm gonna just see. We have says, "Real unfortunate. I was imposed to mutilate my genitals when I was 12 years old in San Juan City, Manila, Philippines." I'm so sorry, Miko. Yeah, there's so much. She said,
Yeah.
"My
There's a lot
parents
of
thought,
people.
yeah,
Mm.
my
Yeah.
parents thought it was expected to do for I to do so." Yes, this is. I watched my friends. I watched my one friend in particular who um I won't say her name, but I remember her just sobbing in choosing this, but it was the amount of pressure from her parents that circumcision. This is like this is what you do, and this is what his father's penis looks like, and this is you're gonna. It's no big deal, and it's standard practice, and you're not harming him, and like there was no one affirming her gut knowing that this was wrong. Everyone convinced her, and they convinced her out of it, and she's regretful to this day. Um,
Yeah.
okay, Randolph says, "What functions are being removed with the tissue?" Do we know that?
Well, yeah. Well, you would have to look it up. There's a lot of books on it, especially Ronald Goldman's work. I'm not a doctor. For me, I mean, in my book, there's a lot of. I have a chapter outlined which particles are missing.
Mhm.
There's, for example, the Meissner particles. But yeah, I'm not very familiar with the medical terminology, but they are on the internet. Um, I can give some sources like the doctors opposing
Yeah, that'd be good.
circumcision or circumcision.org is a
Mhm.
platform that collects all of the proof of what's actually missing. So
Mm,
once you're aware of what's actually missing, it becomes very clear which functions that it affects, of course,
mhm,
socially, neurologically, relationship-wise, sexually, but
mhm,
then also what I'm focusing on metaphysically, spiritually. This is also important. The energy body, the kundalini, the chi, the life force, flow,
mhm.
your life force, the fire within. Um, if it's the fire within is constantly, you know, on a shaky fire stove, well, then what are you gonna get?
Yes, yes.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, Cosmos Tinkerer says, "Do rabbis actually use their teeth during Brit Milah circumcision?"
yes, they do. Yeah, yeah, it's a very despicable thing in my opinion, but yeah,
Despicable is the word. That's tough to hear.
honestly, yeah.
There's, I mean, the I don't always go with these words, but satanic is what comes to mind.
Yeah, it's definitely not what someone would do to if he is pro-life, right? Yeah.
Pro life, yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Um, it's hard to understand even still for me talking about it because such a complex topic, as I said before.
Mhm.
Um, it's ingenious at the same time as well. You know, they've done
Oh,
something that
evil is
they've
ingenious.
well, yeah, exactly. If you want to start to understand that actual evil behind it, normalized evil, meanwhile,
Mhm.
then it becomes even more clear. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Um, what else?
I
Yeah.
have another question here, Niels. Sarah says it disrupts a man's ability to connect with a woman in a beneficial way and not by taking from her for himself. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. If they're leaking, you just see us as an energy source, and that's been our experience where it's like it's like being vampired off of.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Tyra. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Um, Randolph says, can verify the benefit of getting out of bed quickly after waking up. I'm one of the 80% mutilated. Good.
Yeah.
Yes, the love of the mother of our son said no, no, no to circumcision for him. Oh, good, Randolph. I'm glad to hear that. I was curious. I've been doing that genital exploration you recommend with success. Oh, good. Oh, good. So Randolph is one of our go-to guys here.
Yeah.
I'd love to know more about that. And Randolph also, we have like men's gatherings through Randolph.
Yeah.
So gifts
Okay.
from Goddess, DM him. That's great.
Yeah. We'll do
And
that.
Randolph is, I mean, he's so committed to healing and has so many beautiful ways to describe his success with
Yeah.
deep meditation and healing.
Okay.
So
Very nice.
great. Um, Cosmos Seeker says this is an extremely bizarre religious practice. The bris, yeah, yeah, very very bizarre and uh,
Yeah.
despicable, like you said. Randolph says the healing coming from my cuddling in my heart is also happening when I cuddle with the sensations in the sex center. Excellent, excellent. Okay,
Mm.
good. That was my question and intuition, and yeah. Go ahead, Niels.
Oh no, I was going to say. Well, first of all, thank you for letting me explain something like this. But
Mm-hmm.
then at the same time, connecting to someone, for example, it's not that easy once if you're not aware of it in particular, and if most people around you also are not aware of it, or it's normalized, or it becomes aesthetically preferred. So then maybe there is this unmatching magnetic interference between male and female,
Yep.
seeking some energy that actually, as you said, leeches energy from a woman, where this comes from a subconscious, the life force seeking a
Yeah, the
way
leech.
out.
Yes.
So if we can look beyond that instead of putting male, female, or males don't know how to behave, this is also not right.
No.
I think everyone is evolved, ideally in a state of evolution
Mm-hmm.
on all levels to actually understand who we are
Mm-hmm.
beyond our conditioning and acknowledge, surely, but also not just put it on the men. To be honest, I think it's very very important, um, because there's enough division, there is enough hatred and identity politics and identity wars and flags of whatever there is. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes absurd, almost.
Yeah.
And then that's what happens is you retreat. What I've been doing, for example, is to completely focus on my thin red line, my work, what I love. I don't even look up for relationships anymore. I've given up on that, to be honest. I know that what will comes my path, or who comes my path will cross my path. And so instead of other men maybe constantly seeking out or whatever, I'm not even doing that anymore. For me, it's very clear what I'm doing is focusing on myself,
Yeah. Good.
speaking what I know, my truth, and do what I need to do. And this is what I'm doing with the
Yeah.
book and with also my documentary work.
Yeah.
And
You
that said, of
discover your
course,
purpose that
yeah,
your thin red line is you reconnecting,
yeah,
and you're not letting yourself be distracted from what you know is your purpose. And you can
yeah,
feel that. I know that's a felt sense. I'm on the right track. Even if it's
yeah.
desensitized, it's right. And I can feel that with you. I mean, it's very obvious. It's like, oh,
It's difficult to feel it because really you can't feel it. This is why for me then I keep saying cannabis, because it's true. Then I
good.
know exactly this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like all of the things match. This is a good thing about the States. It's legal, at least. Holland, Germany, a lot of projects in South America. But Belgium, no, forget about it. Typical. It's very frustrating, to be a human being in Belgium, especially when you go through something like this that's enforced by the same country you're born in, where your grandparents lived through World War One and Two.
Mm.
They rebuilt it, and then the same country is the actual oppressor of a new form of war, new form of oppression. Never ends. It's
Never.
always going.
That's the point, is that it never ends, that we're
Yeah.
constantly desperate, we're constantly fighting each other. That's all by design.
Yeah.
Uh, Nick says, when our son was newborn, my wife arranged to have him circumcised. She wouldn't even entertain leaving him whole. I told her that if she circumcised him, I'd take him away and she'd never see him again. He remains uncircumcised, as do I. Oh, Nick, incredible. Thank you for doing that. That's awesome. Whew. That was it's a tough moment. You saved him.
There's a
You
lot of
saved him.
horror stories out there too. Let's be very clear. Like, people have committed suicide because of this,
Yeah. Yeah.
because they can't
Yeah.
speak about it, because they're forced to deal with it with themselves. There's children that have been brought away from hospital rooms with far worse damage
Mm,
than just the circumcision
sure.
accidents, then so to speak, right?
Right.
No, this
Right.
is very real, and this is why it has to stop. Um, like, in that sense, that hasn't happened to me, but it should have not happened to begin with.
Yep. Yep.
Because others really, this is why I do this, because others are not here anymore. And this is why it's very, very important that someone speaks up, because honestly, all these others also had the right to be whole and to be themselves and to walk on the earth with a smile on their face, not with a shameful smirk or some, cornered boy,
Mhm.
which I
Mhm.
went through. And
Mhm.
so, as in particular, that parents just do not allow it anymore when they give birth to a new child.
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Uh,
That's, I mean, we like stop it now, right? Get the word out, no more. And then we start repairing, and there's a path of redemption, because there's, it's gonna be a lot of parents who, if, when they realize what they've contributed to, they have a lot of heartbreak to navigate and a lot of guilt and shame, and we need a path of healing for them too, you know? Um, yeah, a path of redemption for everyone, because this is so, I mean, and all of it, right? The whole medical field, the whole, like, all of our field, all of our institutions, all of our government, all of it is only
mhm.
basically done harm, and then we've each signed off on it and consequently done harm, and
the
so
hip,
yeah.
the oath of Hippocrates, the oath of hypocrites, right? It is what it is. It's the oath of a hypocrite.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the enforcer of evil.
Yeah.
The educational system, who, by the way, were the ones who directed me to the clinic because I had too much energy. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah.
sure.
So they're all complicit.
Yep.
You know,
Yep. The
it's a
complicity of the,
sanction. It's a
yeah, state
sanction. It's also
sanctioned.
a sanction. Yeah.
Yes, 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 yes.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm also here to the opportunity to also offer my help
Yes, please.
to anyone out there who for personal sessions and coaching and whatnot that I can offer,
Mm,
because
yeah.
this is I know all about it, and then in particular on the metaphysical and on a focus on the neurodiversity topic, on
Mhm,
alternative ways of healing, of functioning,
mhm.
of getting stuff done and excel at it as well, with
Yes.
the limitations. So feel free to reach out through my Substack or something.
Great.
It'd be my pleasure. Absolutely.
Yeah. Great, great. So good. So important for there to be individual support for men to go to, for anybody, but obviously this is your area. Um, Wonderful. Great. Lots of resources. And I'll put everybody you mentioned in your, I'll link to you obviously, and to all your resources for support. Nick says, I felt really rotten threatening her with that, but it was the only thing which would have stopped her. Yep. Yep. I mean, whatever it takes.
Wow.
Whatever it takes. We have to,
Wow.
it's protecting your children,
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like there's no I see the innocence in believing this is the right thing to do as a mother, as a parent, right? It's like the level of indoctrination. It is no small thing to wake up from state-sponsored indoctrination in any
Yeah.
regard. But once you see it, then you need to be part of the healing and part of the awakening process, let's say. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so here we are.
Yeah.
And so everybody on here, spread the word and be willing to be the weirdo, the one who, who's offending the doctor, the parent, the whomever.
Yeah.
They're not,
To disrupt a little bit,
the
for sure.
disruptor. Yeah, be willing to be
Absolutely. No. Yeah.
disruptive. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Take a cue from
Mm.
the two of us.
And, yeah, I can also mention people can watch my documentary work. It's all for
Yes,
free on my Vimeo channel, which is also linked on my Substack, which is what I love the most, and this is what I put my shoulders under.
yes,
A lot of
yes.
amazing things that have happened. People, it's a lot of documentary, short, but observations of life. How I see it, it's all related to these same things, same topics of control, resilience, but also spiritual awakening
Mm,
from a very grounded way, without uh, too much ado, and a nice, beautiful music soundtrack as well by
yeah.
my friend Matthew, who's composed the score. He is also based in California. Matthew Nicholson. Yeah.
Matthew Nicholson. Which one was the one I watched from Tibet? What was the name of that one? It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Through the veil. Thank you.
Through the veil. Yeah,
Through the veil. Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
It was,
yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Niels, this was enlightening and heartbreaking and very helpful, and I appreciate your work so much. When do you think the book? Well, you're looking for a publisher, so anybody who knows publishers. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. The Dutch manuscript is ready. It's been submitted to a few publishers. But the idea, of course, is to find a way to distribute this internationally with the right publisher that is courageous to bring out such a book, because it is something that will step on toes. It's kicking
Yeah,
shins. But
yeah.
it is not just ungrounded criticism. Absolutely not. It is deep analysis. I'm a social worker. I did
Hmm.
NGO management. So there's social projects involved as well. It's a very, very deeply rooted in humanism and in the arts and culture and film and music, revolutionary thoughts. And so, no, I think I'm onto something, but it's a very large, long road to actually get some changes.
Hmm.
I'm not even sure if it's possible. I think that's why education, it begins with education and awareness, and then these systems will disappear from themselves.
They're just going to disappear.
Yeah.
Because it's just once you see through the veil, right? Once you see, I mean, I watch this all the time. People see through the
Mhm.
story about their relationship or whatever, right? And then it's
Mhm.
over. It's like, oh, I will never do that again, right? And so I'm very aware at how indoctrinated we are, but I'm also aware of the resilience and the um I don't know how to say, like what Lorenzo and I've been talking about, right? When the higher frequency, the clearer truth is registered and you resonate with that, all the old ways and all the old off pitch, insane, desensitizing programs just dissolve. You have no interest in them. And you also gain the courage to talk about it and to spread the word, and you become a beacon for other people. And
Yeah.
so, and then the timing of this, I mean, everybody's waking up about everything, right? We're seeing through. I mean, I don't want to overstate it, but like the level of the level of shift that's going on is enormous, and so we have to. I mean, I know that we have to we have to know that the possibilities are endless in Nova Gaia, in where we're headed. um, because it's a completely different matrix, and it isn't artificial, it is natural. And so in natural living, from natural law, from truly embodied living. I don't know. I think healing miracles could be a regular occurrence. So we're
Yeah,
just gonna
exactly.
hold that frequency. Yeah.
Hmm. That's it. Holding that frequency.
Yep.
That's what we have to try to work on, and
Yep.
ignore all the outside stuff.
Yep.
And in
Yep.
particular, yeah, if you're dealing with stuff like circumcision, holding that frequency, it's like it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's the, yeah. But that's
But
why
we
you,
women will do it. We'll hold it, and you men will join us, and you will support us, and then you will hear it and you will feel it. We are coming together, and we will reset that. We are resetting this grid. It's happening. So
yeah,
you're such a
yeah,
huge part of
definitely.
that. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. You are too. I really
Thank you.
appreciate your work, and thanks again for having me on your podcast. This is really important that I could say it to a larger audience. Yeah.
Yep.
And then I'm going to be speaking at University Ghent next year
Right.
on this actual topic on biopolitics as well. So there's things moving actually. Yeah.
Good. Good. Excellent.
Yeah, it's
Excellent.
good. Yeah.
Excellent. Good. And I'm ready for the blurb on your book, and I'll promote it when it comes
Oh yeah.
out, and
Lovely.
we'll maybe have you on again when that time comes.
Thank you so much, Megan. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you. We'll
Really.
see you later. Bye. We'll see you
Thank you
later.
everyone
Bye,
for your
everybody. See
interest
you
and
next tomorrow.
attention.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.